Hey guys, welcome back to Vertical Momentum. I'm your host, Richard Kaufman, also known as the Comeback Coach. Guys, this is going to be a fun episode. It's not often that you get to interview one of your mentors, and the first one that ever had me on his show, the Battle Buddy podcast. And I'm truly grateful for his friendship and everything he's doing. He is killing it at real estate. He's done some great things in uniform, even better things out of uniform. So, Keith, brother, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for coming on and hanging out today.
Well, thanks for having me, Richard. And I don't get called a mentor very much. So I appreciate those kind words, man, because I look at you the same way, just kind of following your footsteps. I think we're two guys kind of on similar path to just speaking to people and uplifting people and just doing what we can to help others, right?
All right, so and I just want to throw this out there today. We're being sponsored by the Vetpreneur Tribe. I've been there since day one, and without the tribe, I wouldn't be where I am and doing what I'm doing. So, thank you, Vetpreneur Tribe, Marshall, being a new owner, but also thank you, Steven and Lane, for everything you've done in the past, and hope we just keep on growing. So, talk to us, Keith. Give us a quick down and dirty. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, your military service, and bring us up to current.
Well, that's definitely a loaded question, Richard. So I'm from Central Illinois, born and raised here. I did not have a normal childhood compared to most people. So both my parents were in real estate. They got into real estate in 1988. And then I don't know when the vision came through, but they decided to build a log home. That was their dream home. And they wanted to sell log home packages. They had rentals, they had flips, things like that. So they were very well into real estate. So dinner conversations as a kid, we're talking about closings and earnest money and home purchases and all those different things that as a young kid, I had no idea what any of those were about. Fast forward 20 something years, I end up in real estate, but so it was a very, very unique childhood. Great childhood. Just, I could come home from school sometimes and people would be walking through my bedroom. And my parents would do tours of the house and I cleaned out rentals and all these different things. So I kind of swore that off. And like I said, it was pretty normal childhood. Never thought about military service either. Never thought about getting into real estate. And then, who knows? It's amazing what your future holds for you. And you blink and one day you're joining the military, and then a few years down the road, you're getting into real estate.
So now tell us, because I love everybody's recruiting story. Everybody has a different one. So what was your recruiting story like? Tell us about the day you were in the recruiter's office.
Yeah, so for me, it was real interesting. I went to a local junior college and got an associate's degree in criminal justice, law enforcement kind of thing. It was not a transfer degree. All I wanted was just do 2 years and be done. So I was 20, had just graduated. I was working like 30 hours a week at a department store, just kind of like waiting for that inspiration for the rest of my life. I wanted to be a cop. I was a couple months short of being 21. And I just happened to be home alone one day and the phone rang. It was an Army recruiter. And so instead of just hanging up, I just talked to the guy. Like 45 minutes later, he's talking about, oh, well, you've got an associate's degree. We can bring you in as a warrant officer and maybe you could fly helicopters, which, they kind of had me hooked at that point. An ironic twist of fate. I later found out at MEPS that I have a depth perception problem. So I was never going to fly a helicopter, no matter what I would have chose. But that conversation kind of got things going. So my stepdad came home. He was a Vietnam veteran, Air Force. And I talked to him. I said, hey, I don't want to tell my mom, but what do you think? And he said, hey, I think that if you're going to join the military, you should go talk to the Navy or the Air Force if you want that better quality of life. So, loving them and respecting them like I did, I said, okay, sure, I'll go talk to them first. And walked into the recruiter's office, and it was kind of hook, line, and sinker. I was like, yeah, this sounds like a good idea. Why not? I was kind of lost in life. Like, what do I do? What's the next chapter? And all of a sudden it's just sitting there in front of me. I'm like, okay, I could do this. It's only 4 years, maybe 8 if I re-enlist, whatever. And, gain some life experience and figure some things out. It kind of buy me time in a lot of ways. And so that's kind of how I ended up in. I didn't even have a job selected. I was going to either go aerial gunner, firefighter, or security forces. Especially with the associates in law enforcement, security forces was a logical fit. And I was just kind of waiting went through MEPS, all that stuff. He called me one day. He goes, look, I need an answer today. I have a guy that broke his leg. You're the only person I have on my list of security forces that can go now. The rest of them are in high school and they won't graduate. And like 2 weeks later, in April of 2006, I was in boot camp. So it was like 2 months from the time I got the phone call from the Army recruiter to the time I had boots on the ground in San Antonio. So
now, how many years did you put in, and did you?
Well, not that I counted, but my DD-214 says 5 years, 7 months, and 20 days. People always kind of look at me funny when I tell them that. I'm like, I only know because I looked at it like a year ago. It said that. That number just stuck in my head. But yeah, so I was Air Force Security Forces doing law enforcement, military police, for those people that aren't too familiar with the military lingo stuff. And in that time frame, I deployed to southern Iraq as a prison guard in a place called Camp Bucca. I was there for just about 8 months. A couple months after coming back from that, they sent me down to Ecuador. So we guarded some of the AWACS and refueler planes that were doing the, I guess you say, drug interdiction missions. We didn't see any of the drugs down there, but they would go up and scan for boats and aircraft and stuff. So we were down there 6 months just guarding those aircraft. And then right after I got back from that, I PCS to Scott Air Force Base in Southern Illinois. I was previously at Yokota Air Base, Japan. And then meeting the leadership, the chief asked me, she goes, how do you feel about deploying? I said, well, ma'am, I know I got enough time left in. You're going to deploy me now or you're going to deploy me in 6 months. So with all due respect, I don't care. Send me wherever, whenever. I know you're going to send me somewhere. And about a week later, she called up and says, congratulations, you're going back to Iraq in a couple months. So that's where I did my second deployment. And that was it for me.
All right. So now you did 5 years, 7 months, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So what was the thought process in getting out? Because, a lot of guys like myself, I fell with it. I decided I wanted to be a lifer, and I did 23. I would have done 30 if I didn't get hurt, but I got hurt. So that you can't see, you can't shoot, we don't need you. And so, that story. So what was it like getting in that 5 years, 7 months and have to decide, all right, I'm looking to get out. I want to start a new chapter in my life. What was that thought process?
I really didn't think much about it. I was fine with it. I was like, oh, I felt confident in my abilities to land on my feet and not be a statistic, to not end up homeless, despite what leadership tries to tell you of like, oh, you can't get out. You can't leave. We need you, they try to throw these scary statistics in your face and I don't even know where they get the statistics, but right. They try to tell you that everybody's going to have this mountain of problems when they get out. And, you got to stay in or else you're going to end up homeless 6 months after you get out. That's not true. Most veterans get out and they don't become homeless. Some do, unfortunately. We do have problems in our veteran community, but I was confident. I said, look, I got a lot of family. I got a big support structure. I'm a hard worker. I'll just bury my head and charge forward and figure it out. I wasn't worried about it. So,
all right. Now,
didn't sweat it.
One of our friends in the group, Sergeant Nick Valentine, he says, once you step off base, the military does not give a shit about you. The phone stops ringing. You don't have an income coming in, and you're pretty much a man or a female on an island. And some of us come back, especially if you've been over to Iraq, Afghanistan, a little bit left of center. Did you struggle with anything like that, or were you okay when you got home?
Well, I've actually heard Nick say that a few times, and I've heard you mention it on this podcast a few times. And man, there might not be a more true saying about leaving the service. You are kind of left there. You leave. You may be connected to people on social media, but they've replaced you in the unit. Their mission continues. You're on a new path. I don't think I really struggled too much. I think I got lucky in my transition. Actually, I landed a job at a furniture company, and the regional manager that hired me was a veteran. I happen to be a lifelong Denver Broncos fan. The company's headquartered in Denver. The assistant manager was from Denver and was a Broncos fan. So just actually in the interview conversations, most of the stuff was about military service and the Broncos. So go figure I got hired, right? But it was like 4 sales guys and a warehouse guy. And I did that for about a little over a year. And to me, that was just that tight knit family. Now they were, the regional manager was never really around, but the guys I worked with every day was the same guys. We got to know their families. We ate together. We worked 60, 70 hours a week together. So for that first year I was out, I didn't even have time to think about not being connected. I was around the same group of guys, just like you are when you're in uniform every day that you come into the unit. And so I didn't have some of those struggles that other people do. Then I left there and I got into real estate, and I had issues, but I had blinders on for many years that I had any issues. And, it was a couple of years ago that those blinders kind of came off and you kind of confronted with it. It's like ripping a Band-Aid off of a bad wound, and just kind of work through the process of healing from it and figuring it out.
All right. So now there's a lot of guys and girls that listen to this. They're veterans or vetpreneurs, as we like to call ourselves, which are veterans entrepreneurs. And a lot of us, when we get out, and I've done all of it. I used to make fun of it, but I've done all of them. We want to start a t-shirt company, hat company, liquor or coffee company. I did 3 out of 4. But a lot of times, we don't realize until like 6 months later, we're $10,000 in debt and don't know what the hell just happened. And a lot of it's because of, like Steven Kuhn said, if you don't have a business plan, you don't have a business, you actually just have a hobby. So can you talk to us a little bit about becoming a entrepreneur and how important, because I think even if you just go to basic training, after that, everybody knows what an SOP is, standard operation procedures. But I think once we start businesses, we really don't have an SOP until, the shit hits the fan. And then we got to kind of figure it out. So talk to us about, starting your own business and what that was like when you first started.
Yeah, it was a unique path, that's for sure. Because real estate's one of those things that a lot of people don't really think about it necessarily in the true entrepreneur realm. But, we are independent contractors. We do, hang our licenses with a company of some sort, but we're, in most cases, you're free to kind of run your business as you want. Lucky for me, my mother was my business partner. Like I said, she'd been in real estate since '88. We were business partners for almost 9 years, and up until recently. But we, it was the best person to learn from. She taught me everything I need to know about the business of actually working with clients and contracts and all that stuff. But I will admit, I did not treat everything in my business like a business for many years. It took a little while to realize that there were certain things I wasn't doing. The one thing I was doing good, like you said, SOPs, checklists, like having a framework for all that stuff. To me, I don't know how you could do this particular job without it, right? When you have contractual guidelines for this has to happen by this day, this has to happen by that day, without a checklist and without putting things in a calendar with reminders, I don't know how anybody keeps it straight. You just have to. And that's one of the things that just came so incredibly easy to me. It was a no-brainer. It was like, okay, all right, well, today it goes under contract. The house sells in 30 days. What are the deadlines in the contract that have to be, just go down your checklist. Have I put it in my calendar? Yes. Have I sent copies to everybody? Yes. Have I done this? Have I done that? And it keeps everything on track. Some of the other business stuff, like I said, it took a little while, on the advertising and some of the other things to treat it like a business. But that's part of the learning curve, right?
Now, like for me, I know that if for the first year of doing my podcast, I did it willy-nilly. I didn't have a Calendly, and ever since I think it was Robert Garcia told me to use Calendly or get a calendar, I can't live without my calendar now. I can't function. So I think I'm a big reader. I love to study, and even like the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, he talks about how you have to dictate your day. You can't let your day dictate you. So what are some of the positive things that the military has taught you that you've moved over into your business?
Well, I would say definitely time management and being efficient with things. Like you said, calendar. Like, yeah, I'm the same way. If it's in my calendar, it's got to be in my calendar to get done. Even if it's just a half hour little task or something like that, I gotta have it all listed out and planned. But other things would be just leadership and serving other people is something big. Stepping up and not being afraid to step into leadership roles. I see one of the more interesting things is I don't. I mean, I consider myself a leader. I wouldn't consider myself a great leader. It's never ending process of refining those skills, right? But sometimes I find myself in rooms with other people who are in leadership position, maybe elected, maybe volunteer, whatever. And sometimes I see a huge lack of leadership, or maybe I'll say less refined leadership skills, and it's sometimes kind of scary. You realize how much leadership skills that you got and how you kind of by default end up in leading things because other people don't want to or they're unwilling to jump into things.
Okay, now, like, what made you join the Vetpreneur tribe, and has what value has it brought to your business? Like,
Gosh, I think I've been a member of the Vetpreneur tribe for so long. I don't even remember why where I found it. Um, yeah, there's a lot of information that flows back and forth, and I think what's interesting sometimes is I'm in a service based industry, so when somebody posts about physical product issue, right? They can't. Let's just say they can't get hats or they can't get something else in. They have an inventory issue. To me, it's just interesting. It's just like a free education. Like they're telling you about what's going on in their industry, and so you just pick up a little nugget here and there about what's going on in other people's industries. And then there's a lot of people that add a lot of value to things that I guess you wouldn't ordinarily maybe research or look up on your own. And so there's a lot of value there. But the Warrior Council, which is the mastermind group behind everything, I've been a member of that for about 2 years after seeing it advertised in the Vetpreneur tribe. That's where, to me, the real connections have been. A lot of my podcast guests have come from there. I've got a lot of connections. I was just messaging with another Warrior Council member this morning, sending some stuff through Google Drive that she needed for something. So I've collaborated with one in there on a real estate education course on hoarding, if you can guess who that was. And
hi, Tammi.
yeah, so it's just amazing connections, just great people who just care to add value and just collaborate together. Offer suggestions. I've had some people in there when I speak up on different things going on in my business. I've had people tell me things are stupid. Point blank, no sugarcoating it. Like, that's stupid. You can't do it that way. You need to look over here. You need to look over there. So, you find yourself in these rooms and you're kind of masterminding or talking about issues, and people aren't going to sugarcoat it. They're not going to be, for lack of a better term, the yes man. They're going to tell you if it's crap or if it's not going to work. They're going to use their experiences, or if they don't have that experience, everybody in there seems to know somebody that you can connect with. So there's a lot of value in there for veteran business owners.
So what was the impetus of you starting your Battle Buddy podcast, which is probably one of my top 3 podcasts that I listen to every episode? And I'm so grateful that you have me on your show. So talk to us about why you started it and what you have learned from hosting a show like that.
Well, there's a lot to learn, but the idea being in real estate, where I'm at in Central Illinois, I could drive 5 minutes to an appointment, or it could be 45 minutes to an hour. Just depends. And I listen to music like anybody else. I'm a fan of tons of different music, but at some point in time along the way, I kind of got bored with it. I'm like, all right, I'm listening to the same songs over and over again, right? I want to exercise my mind a little bit. I got half an hour between point A to point B. So at some point in time, I was like, I'm going to listen to these podcast things. This is probably 4 or 5 years ago. So I started listening to one here and there. I can't even tell you really the first few shows that I would even listen to. And then late 2019, it somehow just kind of hit me on Facebook that there was a lot of vets that were not just in the Vetpreneur tribe, but other Facebook groups, some of them with a couple 100,000 people in them, some with just a couple thousand. But I've seen so many people struggling. They were struggling with a ton of different issues. And what I've come to kind of realize is they all kind of fit in one category or another. It's either financial and legal issues, and then, or it's personal relationships, close relationships, family, friends, lack of connections to the military and veteran community, physical or mental health, or it's an employment, gainful employment. You know, are you happy and satisfied and thrilled with your job? Does it give you what you need? Not necessarily the money, but benefits and things like that. It seemed like everybody had a problem that lined up in one or more of those categories. And I do firmly believe that substance abuse, homelessness, and suicide are a result of one or more of those areas not being fulfilled, not being in balance, if whatever you want to, whatever, however you want to put it, that the more of those pillars, if you will, are gone, the roof of the building, if that was success, can't stand. It's going to collapse. And so you have to kind of look at each one of those aspects of your life and say, am I doing what I can to make this as solid as possible so I can be successful, so I can grow, you know, be resilient and all those different things. So I that's what I kind of just started noticing on Facebook. And so I just had a random thought one day. I'm like, well, I mean, I could do a podcast, right? I could grab a microphone and figure this out. You know, no clue how to start, where to start, any of those things. And, you know, eventually my wife created the logo, which is on my hat, if I point to it right. So she created that in Canva for me. Kind of just threw it all together. I reached out to a guy that I know here that I've went on the honor flight with. And so I was like, hey, look, I'm going to start this podcast. Going to talk about military and veteran issues. Would you like to be my first guest? And he said, sure. So I had found StreamYard as well and had the microphone and said, let's wing it. I had nothing in my background. Nothing was here. It was just like a blank wall, I believe. And we talked for, I think it was a little over an hour, and he opened up about his traumatic brain injuries, his PTSD, how his service dog literally saved his life. And I could tell you what, 5 minutes in, I was like, I got something. There's power in people telling their stories, because when they tell their stories, other people can connect with it and they can be inspired. Like, hey, if this guy can get past his issues, then so can I. And so there's power when people, you know, tell their stories. You came on there and told your story, and like it's same thing. It's like when people tell their stories and they come and they offer some value and it educates or inspires veterans, then maybe somebody listens to it today, somebody listens to it 6 years from now, but you never know when it's going to hit the right person at the right time to be that catalyst for change. And so that's why I started it. And I've done actually tomorrow will be the 51st episode that will be released. And, you know, it's just amazing. All these conversations, all the topics are different. It's been from those dark topics and military sexual trauma, all the way to credit scores and franchising and, you know, leadership during COVID and, you know, highlighting great nonprofits like Irreverent Warriors and other things like that, and book reviews with authors who've told their stories in uniform. It's just amazing, you know, just to be able to sit down and ask people whatever you want.
Yep. And by the way, I love the hat. It looks very familiar.
Gee, I wonder where I got it. Yeah.
So I want to give some love to JD Tierney from Southpaw Laser Concepts. All my hats are from JD, so I want to give him some love. Now, what has, you know, you've talked to a lot of people that are now get out of the military and they become successful. What are some of the traits that you see the successful people doing that some of the not so successful people are not doing?
What comes to mind for me is probably two things. One, they connect and collaborate with other people. They don't try and go it alone. They get a battle buddy through the process, whether that's just somebody that's an accountability partner or just a friend, whatever. Like, they just don't go alone. They just don't do it themselves, and that's really, really important, right? Because I don't have every skill in the world. Like, I can tell you, doing my podcast, I don't do a whole lot of video edits. I can do them. I don't do them well. Nobody would hire me to edit a film for a movie. That's for sure. And, so you got to rely on your network. You got to figure out people that can fill in those gaps where your weaknesses are, and then the other thing is they're lifelong learners. I think every single one of them it's bettering themselves and educating themselves somehow, some way, every single day. Whether that's reading a book or watching a video or listening to a podcast, whatever, there's this constant thirst and search for knowledge. And they just go out there and they get it wherever they can, whatever topic it is.
All right. So now I love your podcast. So how do we find your podcast? And also, I know you're doing something special for our brother Brian of Project DieHard 22. So please talk about what you got going on and with your podcast and also with your swag.
So my podcast is the Battle Buddy Podcast. You can find it at battlebuddypodcast.net. You can find the audio version on, I record it through Anchor. And so it goes out to Google, Apple. I'm trying to think of the other ones off the top of my head now, but it goes out to Spotify, all the streaming platforms, all the major ones out there. You can find it on. You can't miss it. It's a bright yellow background with this logo on it. I also do mine on video like you do. So mine's on YouTube. You can go find me on Instagram or Facebook. On Facebook, I upload all the videos there too. So they're all available to watch. And I have an episode that drops every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. And when it comes to Brian, I tell you what, when it comes to guys who are passionate, that is one extremely passionate guy, Brian Gibson from Project DieHard. He has a facility in Southern Illinois he's trying to renovate that so he can put, so I get it right, 12 single veterans and 2 veterans with their families in there. It's a very well-rounded plan that he's got, not just helping with one thing, but all of the skills that they need to be successful. And he's trying to raise money down there to make those renovations happen. So I'm from Illinois, so I went down there last summer and rolled up my sleeves and helped them for a day and a half and pulled out some old kids' play sets that were rotten and needed to be taken out. It used to be a daycare facility. And, he's just a man with a lot of passion, a lot of heart. And, it's such an innovative kind of idea that he's got, not just to take veterans and house them for up to a year, but veterans and their families, because they go through a lot too, and they need support. And for them to kind of put everybody in one building where they can learn off of each other and collaborate and build connections and get these skills is something that I'm not really aware of any other nonprofit trying to do that. So it's really unique in what he's doing. And so I try to help where I can, share the message, spread the message. And I collaborated with David and Ginger from Really Designs to create a t-shirt that the location down there says Fob Rush. I should have worn it today. But so says Fob Rush on the front, and a few other things. It's got both of our logos on the back, and all the proceeds from that shirt go right to Project DieHard, just to help fund their mission. So if anybody would like to help with that, I would greatly appreciate. I know Brian definitely would too. Any kind of support they can get down there.
Yep. So when we hang up, I'll ask you to drop the link, send me the link, and I'll drop it in the comments.
Absolutely.
So now the last couple minutes, what do you have going on now? I mean, obviously you're busier than a one-legged man contest. What you got going on now, and how can we support your mission?
Well, the podcast, that's an episode every single week. Not much outside of that. I got some ideas for some other things I can do on that. Really don't have anything super big going on. I just go out there and every day try and help my clients buy and sell homes and maximize the use of their VA loan and in this crazy real estate market that we're in right now. Which, that's that's a whole different topic for a different day. Yeah, so that's just my goals every day. Just wake up and make an impact somewhere, help my clients, and help my battle buddies.
Well, Keith, I just want to say thank you. So, guys, if you get a chance, definitely check out the Battle Buddy podcast. I listen to every episode. I love it, and not just because a lot of my friends get interviewed, but I just love it. I think it's easy that I'm in recovery for 32 years, and sometimes whenever I go to a meeting, I pick out stuff and I use it in my life and stuff that I don't need. I don't use it. And I find your podcast, I learn a lot of things that I can use in my life, not just in business, but in my mental health, my physical health, financial health. So it's an overall well-balanced podcast. And I mean, you even have a geek like me on there. So
well, that's my goal, is to just bring all kinds of different topics. I didn't want to go into just entrepreneurship or just into PTSD or just into, PTSD treatment things or whatever. Like, you could niche really down. I was like, you know what? I just want to talk to cool people who are doing awesome things that can educate or inspire others.
I love it, guys. So if you enjoyed the conversation, leave a comment, subscribe. And like I always mention, Oprah Winfrey said that if you ever want to help yourself, help others. That's the best way to help yourself. And that's why I do what I do. I love you guys. Keith, thanks again so much. Thank you, the Warrior Council and Vetpreneur Tribe. Thank you, Marshall. And I'm so appreciative of you guys. Have an amazing week and enjoy your trip to Disney coming up.
I will. Thank you.
All right, guys. Remember, I'll be back tomorrow. Remember, vertical momentum. The only way to go is up. I love you guys.